The Spook Who Sat by the Door by Sam Greenlee, Chapter 2. Freeman watched the class reunion from a corner of the common room of the CIA training barracks. It was a black middle-class reunion. There were black bourgeoisie to a man, black nepotism personified. In addition to those who had recruited themselves upon receiving notice that the CIA was now interested in at least token integration, 5 were relatives or in-laws of civil rights leaders, 4 others of Negro politicians. Only Freeman was not middle class, and the others knew it. Even had he not dressed as he did, not used the speech patterns and mannerisms of the Chicago ghetto slums, they would have known. His presence made them uneasy and insecure. They were members of the black elite, and a product of the ghetto streets did not belong among them. They carefully ignored Freeman, and it was as he wished. He had no more love for the black middle class than they for him. He watched them establishing the pecking order as he sat sipping a Scotch highball. It was their first day in the training camp after months of exhaustive screening, testing, security checks. Of the hundreds considered, only the 23 present in the room had survived and had been selected for preliminary training, and, constantly reminded of it since they had reported, they pranced, posed, and preened in mutual and self-admiration. To be a Negro firster was considered a big thing, but Freeman didn't think so. "Man, you know how much this 12-year-old scotch cost me in the commissary? 3 bills and a little change. Chef had regal. As long as I can put my mouth around this kind of whiskey at that price, I'm in love with being a spy. You know they call CIA agents spooks? First time we'll ever get paid for that title. Man, the fringe benefits, they just don't stop coming in. Nothing to save the base pay and stuff. We got it made. Say, baby, didn't we meet at the Penn Relays a couple of years ago? In that motel on the edge of Philly? You remember that chick you was with, Lorleen? Well, she's teaching school in Camden now, and I got a little bit of that from time to time. Now, man, don't freeze on me. I'm married too, and you know Lorleen don't give a damn. I'll tell her I saw you when we get out of here. Where'd you go to school, man? Fisk? I went to Morris Brown. You frat? Q? You got a couple brothers here. Those 2 cats over there. What you major in? What your father do? Your mother working too? Where your wife go to school? What sorority? What kind of work you do before you made this scene? How much bread you make? Where's your home? What kind of car you got? How much you pay for that suit? You got your own pad or you live in an apartment? Co-op apartment? Tell me that's the new thing nowadays. Clue me in. You got color TV, component stereo, or console? Drop those names. Doctors I have known, lawyers, judges, businessmen, dentists, politicians, and great Negro leaders I have known. Drop those brand names. GE, Magnavox, Ford, GM, Chrysler, Zenith, Brooks Brothers, Florzine, Johnny Walker, Chivas Regal, Jack Daniels, Imported Beer, DuPont Carpeting, Wall-to-Wall. Wall-to-wall drags with split-level minds, remote-control color TV souls, and credit card hearts. Play Who Do You Know and Who Have You Screwed. Blow your bougie blues, your nigga sold for a mess of materialistic pottage. You can't ever catch Charlie, but you can ape him and keep the gap widening between you and those other niggas. You have a ceiling on you and yours, your ambitions, but the others are in the basement and you will help Mr. Charlie keep them there. If they get out, move up to your level, then what will you have?" They eyed Freeman uneasily. He was an alien in this crowd. Somehow, he had escaped the basement. He had moved up to their level, and he was a threat. He must be put in his place. He would not last, Breeden told, but he should know that he was among his betters. The tall, good-looking one with the curly black hair and light skin approached Freeman. He was from Howard, and wore his clothes Howard style, the cuffless pants stopping at his ankles. His tie was very skinny and a knot almost unnoticeable. His shoulder padding non-existent. He had known those arrogant Chicago rappers like Freeman before, thinking they owned Howard's campus, moving in with their down-home ways, their Mississippi mannerisms, loud laughter, no manners, elbowing their way into the fraternities, trying to steal the woman, making more noise than anyone else at the football games and rallies. One of those diddy bop niggas from Chicago had almost stolen his present wife. "Where you from, man? You don't seem to talk much." "No, I don't." "Don't what?" "Don't talk much. I'm from Chicago." Chicago? Where you from before that? Way back Georgia? Snatchback Mississippi? Look like you just got off the train, man. Where's the paper bag with your sack of fried chicken? Freeman looked at him and sipped his drink. No, seriously, man, where you from? A lot of boys here from the South. How come you gotta pretend? I bet you don't even know where State Street and the Loop is. How you sneak into this group? This is supposed to be the cream, man. You sure you don't clean up around here? Freeman stood up slowly, still holding his drink. The tall one was standing very close to his armchair and had to step back when Freeman rose. Baby, I will kick your ass. Go away and leave me the hell alone. The tall one opened his mouth to speak. A fraternity brother sidled up, took his arm, and led him away. Freeman freshened his drink and sat down in front of the television set. After a lull, the black middle-class reunion resumed. He had not made a mistake, he thought. All niggas looked alike to whites, and he had thought it to his advantage to set himself apart from this group in a way that would make the whites overlook him until too late. They would automatically assume that the others, who looked and acted so much like their black representatives and spokesmen who appeared on the television panels, spoke in the halls of Congress, made the covers of Time and Life, and ran the Negro newspapers and magazines, who formed the only link with the white world, were threatened to survive this test. Both the whites and those sedity niggas, Freeman thought, would ignore him until too late. And, he thought, whitey will be more likely to ignore a nigger who approaches the stereotype than these others who think imitation the sincerest form of flattery. He smiled when he thought about walking in his friend's dental office that day. Hey, Freebie, what's happening, baby? Ain't seen you in the Boulevard Lounge lately. Where you been hiding? Got something new on the string? Nah, been working. Look, you know the cap you put on after I got hung up in the Iowa game? I want a new one, with an edge of gold around it. Gold? You must be kidding. And where you get that refugee from Robert Hall suit? That's where I bought it. I'm going out to Washington for a final interview panel and I want to please the crackers. His friend nodded. He understood. Freeman did not spend much time socializing with the rest of the Negro pioneers, those chosen to be the first to integrate a segregated institution. He felt none of the gratitude, awe, pride, and arrogance of the Negro first, and he did not think after the first few days that many of them would be around very long, and Freeman had come to stay. They had calisthenics in the morning, and then 6 hours of classes. Exams were scheduled for each Saturday morning. They were not allowed to leave the area, but there were different movies screened each night in a plush, small theater. There was a small PX, a swimming pool, a bar, and a soda fountain. There was a social area at each end of the building in which they lived that included pool tables, ping pong, a television room with color TV, chess, and checker sets. There was a small library containing technical material related to their classes in light fiction, magazines, and periodicals. There was a music room with a stereo console containing an FM/AM receiver with records consisting mostly of show tunes from Broadway hits of the last decade. There were Coke machines. It was like a very plush bachelor office's quarter. There were basketball courts, badminton courts, a 9-hole golf course, squash courts, a gym, a 220-yard rubberized track, a touch football field. After the intensive screening which they had undergone prior to their selection, none of the rest thought that the classes and examinations were anything more than window dressing. They settled down to enjoy their plush confinement during the training period, after which they would be given offices in the vast building in Langley, Virginia, down by the river. Freeman combined a program of calisthenics, weight training, isometrics, running, and swimming, which never took more than an hour, usually less than half that time. He would watch television or read until dinner, take an hour's nap, then study until midnight. No one at the training camp, white or colored, thought it strange that Freeman, a product of the Chicago ghetto, where Negroes spend more time, money, and care in the selection of their wardrobe than ever in Harlem, should be so badly dressed. Or that, although he had attended 2 first-rate educational institutions, he should speak with so limited a vocabulary, so pronounced an accent, and such Uncle Tom humor. They put it down to the fact that he had been an athlete who had skated through college on his fame. Freeman did not worry about the whites because he was being exactly what they wished. The Negroes of the class would be ashamed of him, yet flattered by the contrast. But there might be a shrewd one among them. There was only one. He approached Freeman several times with penetrating questions. The fraternity thing put him off. "You a fraternity man, Freeman?" he asked once over lunch. "Nah, I was once because of the chicks. You had to have that pin, you know. Almost as good as a letter in football. But I thought that kind of stuff was silly. I used to be a Kappa." He looked at Freeman coldly. "I'm still a Kappa," he said. He finished lunch and never spoke to Freeman again. Midway through the 4th week, 3 of the group were cut. They were called into the front office and informed that their grades were not up to standard, and that same evening they were gone. Panic hit the group, and there were several conferences concerning what should be done. Several long-distance phone calls were made, 3 to politicians, 5 to civil rights bureaucrats. The group was informed that they were on their own and that after the time, energy and money and effort had gone into their integration, they should feel obligated to perform up to the highest standards. Freeman had received the best grades in each of the exams, but no one was concerned with that fact. 2 others left the following weekend, although their grades were among the highest in the room. Freeman guessed correctly that it was for homosexuality and became convinced that in addition to being bugged for sound, the rooms monitored by closed-circuit TV. He was right. The telephones, even the ones in the booths with coin boxes, were bugged as well. The general received a weekly report regarding the progress of the group. It appeared that those intellectually qualified could be cut on physical grounds. They were already lagging at the increasing demands of the morning calisthenics and were likely not to survive the rigors of hand-to-hand combat. The director of the school confidently predicted that not one of the Negroes would survive the 10 weeks of the school, which would then be completely free for a new group of recruits presently going through preliminary training. It was to the credit of Freeman's unobtrusive demeanor that the school director did not think of him, in spite of his excellent grades and physical condition, when making his report to the general. If he had, he might have qualified his report somewhat. The general instructed his school's director to forward complete reports to the full senatorial committee. He intended to head off any possible criticism from Senator Hennington. He could not know that the senator was not the least concerned with the success or failure of the Negro pioneers to integrate the Central Intelligence Agency. He had won his election for another 6 years. He was safe. "When this group is finished, I want you to begin screening another. Don't bother to select Negroes who are obviously not competent. They have already demonstrated their inability to close the cultural gap, and no one is in a position seriously to challenge our insistence not to lower standards for anyone. It will cost us a bit of flunk out 6 or 8 a year, but we needn't worry about harassment on this race thing again in the future if we do. It's a sound investment," said the general. He was pleased and again convinced that he was not personally prejudiced. Social and scientific facts were social and scientific facts. He ate a pleasant meal in his club that evening and noted that there were both white and colored present. The whites were members and guests. The Negroes served them. The general did not reflect that this was the proper order of things. He seldom approved of the rising of the sun either. 2 more were cut for poor marksmanship. Freeman had obtained an ROTC commission at college and had served in Korea during the police action. He was familiar with all of the weapons except the foreign ones, and a weapon is a weapon. Only the extremely high cyclic rate of the Schmeisser machine pistol bothered him, and that did not last very long. "Mr. Freeman," the retired Marine gunnery sergeant said, "that is an automatic weapon and designed to be fired in bursts. Why are you firing it single shot?" "It's to get its rhythm, Sergeant. I couldn't control the length of the burst at first, and I was wasting ammo, but I think I have it now." The sergeant knew that Freeman had been an infantryman, and Marines, in spite of what they claim, have at least a modicum of respect for any fighting man. "Okay, Mr. Freeman. Show me what you mean. Targets 1 through 5. I use only 1 clip." "Call the burst, Sergeant." 3, 5, 5. He called the number of rounds he wanted in rapid succession, as fast as Freeman could fire them. There were rounds left for the final target, and on inspection, they found that 1 5-round burst had been 6 instead. "That is very good shooting, Mr. Freeman. Were you a machine gunner in Korea?" "No.
I was in a heavy weapons company for a while and got to know MGs fairly well, but I spent most of my time in the line infantry company. I like automatic weapons though. I learned it's not marksmanship, but firepower that wins a firefight. I want to know as much as I can about these things. Alright, Mr. Freeman, I'll teach you what I know. You can have all the extra practice and ammo you want. Just let me know a day ahead of time and I'll set it up. We'll leave the schmazzer for a while and start with the simpler jobs, and then work up. Pistols too? Yes, I'd like that, Sergeant. And I'd rather your maintenance section than clean them for me. I'd rather do it myself. No better way I know of to learn a weapon than to break it down, clean, and reassemble it. The gunnery sergeant nodded his head and something rather like a smile crossed his face. Freeman read everything in the library on gunnery, demolition, subversion, sabotage, and terrorism. He continued to hear the class and examination results. There was much more study among the group now, and they eyed one another uneasily, wondering who would be the next to go. They had no taste for returning to the jobs they had left. Civil rights bureaucracies, social welfare agencies, selling insurance, heading the playground in the ghetto, teaching school. All of the grinding little jobs open to a non-professional middle-class Negro with a college degree. Long after Freeman retired, between midnight and 1, his program not varying from the schedule he had established during the first week, the rest of the class studied far into the night. The group was given the Army physical aptitude test, consisting of squat jumps, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and a 300-yard run. Freeman headed the group with a score of 482 out of a possible 500. The men finishing second and third to him in academics were released when they scored less than 300 points. There were only 2 other athletes in the group. One, a former star at Florida A&M, and the other, a sprinter from Texas Southern. They were far down on the list academically, although they studied each night until dawn. It was just a matter of time before they left. In 2 months, there were 5 of the group left, including Freeman. Hand-to-hand combat rid 2 of them. The instructor was a Korean named Sue, but Calhoun, his supervisor, was an American from North Carolina. The niggers would leave or Calhoun would break their necks. He broke no necks, but he did break one man's leg and dislocated another man's shoulder. He was surprised and angered to find that Freeman had studied both judo and jiu-jitsu and a brown belt in the former and a blue stripe in the latter. He would throw Freeman with all the fury and strength he could muster. Each time, Freeman took the fall expertly. He dismissed the rest of the class one day and asked Freeman to remain. Freeman, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think your people belong in our outfit. I don't have anything against the rest of the group. I just don't think they belong. But you, I don't like. Well, I guess that's your hang-up. I don't like your goddamn phony humility, and I don't like your style. This is a team for men, not for misplaced cotton pickers. I'm going to give you a chance. You just walk up to the head office and resign, and that will be it. Otherwise, we fight until you do. And you will not leave this room until I whipped you and you walk out of here, or crawl out of here, or carried out of here and resign. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Whitey, you make yourself clear. But you ain't running me nowhere. You're not man enough for that. Freeman felt the adrenaline began coursing through his body, and he began to get that limp, drowsy feeling, his mouth turning dry. I can't back away from this one, he thought. Mr. Sewell, referee. International judo rules. No chops, kicks, or hand blows. Falls and chokeholds only. After a fall, you got 3 minutes rest, and we fight again, and I keep throwing you, Freeman, until you walk out of this outfit for good. Mr. Sue? They bowed formally and circled one another, each reaching gingerly for handholds on the other's jacket. He had 15 pounds on Freeman and wore a black belt, but a black belt signifies only that the warrior had studied judo techniques enough to instruct others. The highest degree for actual combat is the brown belt that Freeman wore. Calhoun was not a natural athlete and had learned his technique through relentless and painstaking practice. His balance was not impressive, and he compensated with a wide stance. Freeman figured his edge and speed all but nullified his weight disadvantage. He had studied Calhoun throughout the courses. He had watched him when he demonstrated throws and when he fought exhibition performances with Sue. Freeman was familiar with his technique and habits and knew that he favored 2 throws above all others, a hip throw and a shoulder throw, both right-handed. He came immediately to the attack. Freeman avoided him easily, feeling him out, testing his strength. Calhoun was very strong in the shoulders and arms, but as slow as Freeman had anticipated. He compensated by bullying his opponent and keeping him on the defensive. Calhoun tried a foot sweep to Freeman's left calf, a feint, then immediately swung full around for the right-handed hip throw. Freeman moved to his right to avoid the sweep, as the North Carolinian had wanted. Then, when Calhoun swung into position for the hip throw, his back to Freeman. Freeman simply placed his hand on his back and, before he could be pulled off balance and into the fulcrum of Calhoun's hip, pushed hard with his left hand, breaking contact. It had been a simple and effective defensive move, requiring speed and expert timing. They circled and regained their handholds on each other's jackets. After a few minutes of fighting, realizing that he was outsped, Calhoun began bullying Freeman in an effort to exhaust him. Sue signaled the end of the first 5-minute period. They would take a 3-minute rest. By now, Freeman knew his opponent. "You'd be dangerous in the alley," thought Freeman, "but you hung yourself up with judo. Karate or jiu-jitsu maybe to slow me down with the chops and kicks. But there is no way you can throw me in judo, white boy." He wondered whether to fight or to continue on the defense. He looked at Calhoun, squatting Japanese style on the other side of the mat, the hatred and contempt naked on his face. "No," he thought. "Even if I blow my seam, I got to kick this old face ass. When you grab me again, Waddy, you're going to have 2 handfuls of 168 pounds of pure black hell." He took slow, deep breaths and waited for the 3 minutes to end. Sue nodded to them. They strode to the center of the mat, bowed, and reached for one another. Freeman changed from the standard judo stance, with feet parallel, body squared away and facing the opponent, to a variation, right foot and hand advance, identical to a southpaw boxing stance. It is an attacker's stance, the entire right side being exposed to attack and counter from the opponent. Freeman relied on speed, aggressiveness, natural reflexes, and defensive ability to protect himself in the less defensive position. He wanted only one thing: to throw this white man. He moved immediately to the attack. Freeman tried a foot sweep, his right foot to Calhoun's left, followed up with a leg throw, also to Gary, then switched up from right to left, turning his back completely to his opponent, whose rhythm he had timed, and threw him savagely with a right-handed hip throw. Calhoun lay there and looked at Freeman in surprise. He got slowly to his feet, rearranging his judo jacket and retying his belt. Freeman did the same. Then, facing him, he bowed as is the tradition. Calhoun remained erect, staring at Freeman coldly. Freeman maintained the position of the bow, hands on thighs, torso lowered from the hips. "Calhoun-san, you're a judoka. You will return bow Freeman-san," hissed Sue. Reluctantly, Calhoun bowed. They returned to their places on the mat, squatting Japanese style, waiting for the 3 minutes to end. Freeman wondered if he could keep from killing this white man. No, he thought, he's not worth it and it would really blow the seam. But he does have an ass kicking coming and he can't handle it. This cat can't believe a nigga can whip him. Well, he'll believe it when I'm through. Sue signaled them to the center of the mat. Freeman methodically chopped Calhoun down. He threw him with a right foot sweep, a left-handed leg throw, another hip throw, and finally, a right-handed shoulder throw. Calhoun, exhausted by now, but refusing to quit, reacted too slowly and landed heavily on his right shoulder, dislocating it. Sue forced the shoulder back into the socket, and the contest was finished. Saying nothing, they bowed formally, and Freeman walked slowly to the locker room. It was the end of the day, Friday, and he would have the weekend to recuperate. He would need it. Calhoun asked for an overseas assignment. Within 3 days, he left for leave at his family home in North Carolina, then disappeared into the Middle East. Freeman would have to be more careful. There were holes in his mask. He would have to repair them. End of chapter 2.